Good girls. That's what we like to see. 2 today, Mrs. W.
Yay!
They do seem very happy there, don't they, hey? Hello, and welcome back to our garden. It's lovely to see you all again. Somebody asked me a question the other day about our chickens, and I said, we've got 3 bantams. Now, they do go broody from time to time, but mostly, for most of the year, they do lay us lots of lovely eggs, and we get anywhere between sort of 2 and 3 eggs a day, really, don't we?
Yeah.
Which is quite good for the year. And you can't beat a fresh egg in the same way that you can't beat lovely, fresh veg. Now, I did have 1 or 2 questions regarding the polytunnel. What did you do first? Well, do you know what? Got Mrs. W to sow all of these things. So there's lots that can actually go in there. They're not all actually for the polytunnel. Some of these things are to go in our garden that I haven't yet had time to get in there. I can see there's some cauliflowers there, some cabbages that do need to go out into the beds down there. But a lot of these things, as I say, we have sown, and we want to be able to put them in our lovely new polytunnel and see just how they behave. Will we get harvest from them? I don't know. Good time to subscribe though, because then you'll find out along with us. Now, in today's programme, we shall take a bit of a close look at the polytunnel. And again, I've had lots of questions from you guys and comments regarding how the polytunnel went up. Will it stay in place? What about if it gets windy? Well, as I said to you, we did have 2 very special visitors to our garden, Tim and Mandy. And a bit later on in the video, I'm pretty sure that most of the comments that you've made, they will address. And just in case you want a little bit more information, I did actually film them putting this tunnel up. So you can rewind that piece back and forth again just to see how that polytunnel went together. Thank you for your lovely comments that you've sent myself and Mrs. W. And, you know, we are really pleased with the tunnel that we have. Not least, actually, one of the things I really do like is that it's lovely, smooth look. You know, a lot of polytunnels have this pleating, don't they? And I'm not quite so keen on that. Now, one of the very first things I'm going to plant into this polytunnel is one of Mrs. W's favourites, which are her peas.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, you may think that I've gone mad. I wouldn't ordinarily choose to plant peas at this time of the year. Certainly not outside. And I don't know how they'll react within this polytunnel. But actually this was a bit of serendipity, really, wasn't it? A happy accident.
Yes.
So if you're a follower of our channel, you'll know that earlier on this year we made the decision that we wanted to try and save some of our own seed. And the top priority for myself, and of course Mrs. W, was the alderman pea. When the peas became ready for us to take off, they'd become crispy, leathery, we took those pods and actually just laid some in the greenhouse, didn't we?
We did.
Just on the floor.
Yeah.
So we'll just let them just finish going really quite dry there. And then, I don't know, whenever it was, a few weeks later, we went in there, gathered them up and thought, right, we'll pod them now, or depod them now, and we'll put them into envelopes ready for storage. However, about one of the pods had actually split, and 6 of the peas had fallen on the floor. And this would have been late July?
Yeah.
Probably even August, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we thought, oh, they'd actually begin to germinate. We could see the stem starting to come out, couldn't we?
Yeah, there was just 6 little peas,
Yeah,
wasn't
just
there?
6, yeah. So, Mrs. W said, I'm not wasting those. And you can see that over the last 4 or 5 weeks, they really have started to get a shift on. Now, there's nothing wrong with sowing peas late on in the year to put in your borders, and you can use them as pea shoots. Add them to your salads and things. Even use them as a vegetable, because pea shoots are absolutely lovely, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
And we've done that before. However, Mrs. W does like the actual peas. Well, they've got a lovely
nice root system. Yeah.
That is amazing. Absolutely.
I think we're going to have to tie them in a little bit.
Yeah, I think I've got to tie them in, yeah.
I just think it would be a really good experiment just to see. And if we get the Indian summer that they are suggesting we might get, we may be lucky. And if not, nothing lost.
No, they'd already germinated anyway, hadn't they?
Yeah, that's right. We couldn't have saved them. They've germinated already.
They really do have a lovely root system, though. They really do. Very pleased with that. Now, while I plant the rest of these, Tim and Mandy, who I filmed a bit earlier, I'm sure they'll have lots to say that will answer a lot of your comments. Now I'd like to introduce you to Tim and Mandy Crossman, who have come here today to build this Haygrove tunnel, this wonderful tunnel. Now, as I said before, myself and Mrs. W, we've done lots of research on polytunnels, and we found this to be the one that we considered to have the best value and to be the best tunnel to put here in our garden. I could actually just tell you how we arrived at that, but actually we have probably the most qualified person in Tim, who's here, who can give you all the great features and benefits of this Haygrove tunnel. So Tim.
Great introduction, thank you, Barry. The best bit about coming here actually is you get a glass of champagne when you finish building it. So we're going to try and build another one sometime.
Now, one of the things that I really liked about this tunnel is the fact that it has ventilation on both sides. Is that a unique feature of your tunnels?
I think I think tunnels and glass houses, there's been a huge change over the last 10, 15 years, where traditionally everyone had glass greenhouses,
Yep.
and either that or a semicircular polytunnel with very little ventilation in it. About 12, 13 years ago, Haygrove designed a polytunnel. Haygrove, a commercial polytunnel company, really, but they went into this market, and they came up with quite a unique design. So you'll see it's much straighter sider, so we haven't got that semicircular shape, so it's much easier to get into the sides.
Yes, it is.
The other kind of obvious thing is it's not a clear polythene, clear material. And then, as you mentioned, the ventilation. I think that this is a kind of a new generation of thinking for growers, for home growers. The biggest problem most people come to us and talk about are two things, really. One, they come and say, our glass house is blown away, our polytunnel is blown away, we bought something relatively cheap, and we all know climate is changing dramatically.
Yeah.
So one thing about this is we've been going 13 years, to our knowledge we've never lost one in the wind, so they're super strong. But secondly, they are great to work in and to grow in.
Yeah.
This material is not, it doesn't look like this for no reason. It diffuses half of the light, so you don't get that really scorching light on the tunnel.
Which can be really damaging to plants, can't it? If it's if they get scorched.
And I mean, I know we haven't had it this summer, but last summer, my word,
Yeah.
tunnels were getting up to 40, 50 degrees, and not much fun to work in.
No.
Difficult to grow in. So we've worked really hard on that. So we have the diffusion of the light, but as you mentioned, also the ventilation on both sides. So full length both sides. We have an insect net for about 1 metre. And that allows a really good flow of air across the tunnel while keeping the insects we don't want out. And you can also see that on the door as well, a vent here.
Yeah.
And so the thing we really like about the tunnel is that during the winter, you wind that down, that seals the tunnel up, and then depending on the temperature, you can very simply wind that up and down. And beneath that outer cover is this mesh, so that will keep anything from thrips, but obviously butterflies, anything like that out, but allows that flow of air across the tunnel.
And that's both sides, isn't it?
That comes standard on all our tunnels on both sides, yeah. So yeah, as I was saying, that's the two sort of things we get a lot of people talking about. One, they're not strong enough, and two, they just get so hot during the summer period. So we've tried to come up with something that is very strong, gets you good ventilation, diffuses the light, and just creates that really nice growing environment.
Yeah.
But also somewhere really nice to work in.
Yeah.
It's not all about the plants, it's somewhere you're going to get a lot of pleasure working in here for many, many hours.
Yes.
And it's got to be a nice environment to do that.
Yes. And of course that ventilation, that will also help with the condensation problems that you can often get in polytunnels, won't it?
Yeah, very much so. As soon as you cover something with plastic and you've got a lot of moisture in the tunnel because you've got a lot of vegetation, you're watering the crop, you're going to get humidity. So you have to have somewhere that humidity can escape. So that's why we do that, and then we've also put a vent on this door.
Yeah.
So you just stop that you can get that as much of that humidity out as possible.
Which is absolutely great because over a winter period, if I want to grow brassicas in there, I don't need to have the door open. I can have the vents open at this time of the year when it is still relatively warm in September and October in the UK, and that will stop those butterflies getting in there and laying their eggs.
Yeah, and that's very much the thinking behind the design, really. The idea is you can keep your door shut, have the vent on the door open, have the two side vents open, so you're keeping ventilation whilst keeping things like cabbage white out.
Absolutely fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Now, the other thing that actually I know when myself and Mrs. W were looking at the different tunnels and the different places we could go is that you actually have a metre wide door, don't you?
Yep.
Which is great because with us being no dig, I can actually get my wheelbarrow in here and tip the compost.
Absolutely right. Yep.
Really great.
Yep.
Really great. And some of our disabled friends will also be able to get into the tunnel, won't they?
Yes. No, absolutely. So that little bar at the bottom can be sunk down so you can get a wheelchair in. Do it 1 metre wide, and you'll also notice we've used no wood in it at all.
Yes.
So the whole structure is galvanised steel. The base plate's hot dip galvanised. This frame will last you a lifetime. I'm not saying you're an old man, Barry, but it will last you a lifetime. But it'll last
Some people would, Tim.
And yeah, so we've tried to steer away from wood, use steel. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like that too because, as again, you're thinking at some point, you know, we all know what wood is like. I mean, what was it? Probably 6-7 years ago, we had wooden raised beds at first, didn't we? They didn't last that long, did they? Before, and that's why we changed our beds when we went over to the No Dig system. We took all the wooden sides out, and actually be amazed how they'd rotted and been eaten.
Yeah.
You know, and that was only over a period of about 4 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, really good. So why don't we have a look inside the tunnel, eh? Now, just as you said, Tim, you know, I mean, I'm 5'11" and I can stand here and I'm not. So my crops can grow up to here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easily.
I think it's nice. It's not completely straight-sided, but it's as straight-sided as we can make it. So you can, you know, utilise all this space either side at the back. And I think with this, a 4 metre tunnel is a nice size for you because you've managed to get 3 beds across the tunnel. Yeah, which I think, you know, really is good. And you can see that, you know, the galvanised base plates that are here, you know, none of that is going to rot, is it, really? No, it's not going to rot, and it's a slightly different system to a lot of tunnels where we build the tunnel just straight onto the soil with the steel plate. These anchors you can see here are about 85 centimetres long, so we don't have any foundations, we don't dig any holes, we literally build the tunnel straight on the ground, and then this tunnel has 27 of those anchors all the way around the base plate holding it into place. So that's quite an easy way to build a tunnel as well, and we know there's 2 things going to happen to the tunnel. One, the wind's going to suck it up and move it, never going to happen. And the other thing is you worry about whether the steel is strong enough. A lot of tunnels the steel is significantly smaller than this. So we've tried to come up with a tunnel that is as bulletproof as possible. Never going to say never. And of course we could produce a bulletproof tunnel, but nobody'd be able to afford it. But we're very much the feeling that, you know, it is a bit of an investment, but if you're going to invest in a tunnel that's going to give you all that pleasure, let's do it once and get the right tunnel. So hopefully you'll get many hours of pleasure out of this.
I know we're going to.
And people often come and say, oh, is this a polytunnel, is this a glass house? And we actually originally called it a garden tunnel, and I quite like that differentiation.
Yes, I like that, yeah.
Because it isn't like a traditional rounded polytunnel with no ventilation, and it's not quite like a glass house. It sits somewhere in the middle. And we're in that little bit of a niche. So hopefully, you know, it ticks boxes for a number of people. Yeah.
One thing that really impressed me, actually, while I was filming you guys today, putting this up, and when this base plate first went down, you know, the tunnel was it wasn't rigid. It was, but since those stakes have gone in, you can't even move this, can you? There's no wiggle whatsoever.
No, it is strong. And it's funny, we've done so many shows this year, we've had people come in and say, you know, we've had glass houses for years. We lost our glass house this year. You know, the climate is changing, so we have to be aware of that. And hopefully more and more people are getting into growing their own vegetables now. Or fruit and vegetables, and something like this will just allow them to extend that season, not lose quite so much. You know, we haven't had a great summer this year. It's been tricky growing some of the stuff outside, and this provides a bit of an alternative.
It has. And funny enough, I was watching something on YouTube the other day, and I can't remember what the channel was called, but it was based on an allotment, and there were 2 or 3 Haygrove tunnels on there.
Were there?
And the video actually started off where he's shown all the tunnels and greenhouses that had actually blown over in the storms earlier this year. And the 3 or 4 Haygrove tunnels were all still standing.
Great, good to hear.
And, you know, you can find that on YouTube. I saw that on there, and it's not somebody who's affiliated to you or in any way. They just happen to be 3 or 4 tunnels on that allotment site. So
that's good to hear.
And maybe one of the things is what I saw earlier, and if we go outside perhaps we can show that you don't have to dig lots of trenches, do you?
As you mentioned, Barry, a lot of tunnels, there's a couple of ways you can secure the material so it doesn't blow away. One is to dig a trench. Hard work. Not sure I'm doing this job if I have to do that every time. So you dig a trench, bury the poly and put soil back in. The other one is where you put a wooden batten along it. Again, we've steered away from wood, but you can use wood, and then you knock it down to tighten the poly. Got a slightly different system here, where here is a piece of steel channel which is welded onto the base plate, and then we put what we call a zigzag wire into here, So when Mandy and I are building them, one person pulls the material down to get the tension, and then we just work this wiggle wire in. And so when you are building them or having to build them, there's no wood involved, and there's no having to dig trenches. So quite a nice little neat system, and something we've really taken from our commercial tunnel knowledge and over the years.
Yeah, fantastic. And then one of the really big things that we saw and thought, this is absolutely amazing. I've seen other people on YouTube that have tried to do their own systems after their tunnel has gone up. But actually, and it's just started to rain actually. Guttering. You can provide guttering for these tunnels.
We can. Amazing what you can collect off a relatively small tunnel like this.
Yeah.
So we've come up with a system where we have a backing plate and we can actually put proper gutters on one side or both sides.
Yeah.
Works its way down, and then we can collect the water in a butt, and then you can use that water. This is the best water.
It is. There's no two ways about that.
And,
You can see it coming out there now, look.
So we'll attach all these different bits. We'll work it into a water butt at the back, and then you can use that water for irrigation.
Yeah, and I've got to go pick up some water butts tomorrow, haven't I, Mrs. W?
W.
Now, do just explain to me, as well as our viewers too, because polytunnel growing will be brand new to myself and Mrs. W. So we have these rings here.
Yep.
What are they for?
Well, when we put the hoop together, it's a 5-piece hoop. We put a bolt through. We thought, well, we might as well put a ring nut on there, because then you can put what we call these trellis cables. These can be tightened up, and then if you're growing tomatoes or any crop you want to trellis, you can string them up to here. The whole point about growing in a why would you invest money in a glass house or a polytunnel or anything? You know, we live in an ever-changing climatic world where even in this country, a fairly temperate part of the world, we're getting very different levels of weather. But we're all looking to grow more stuff, and this does is it allows you to go earlier, allows you to go later.
Yeah.
If we have a fairly poor summer like we have this year, you know, some people have said to us we really struggle with things like cucurbits, the courgettes, the tomatoes, things like that. But undercover, just, you know, we had a very, like you were saying over here, we had a very cold easterly wind through.
Yeah, yes, it really was.
People outside really struggled, but people in tunnels were able to combat that really. And so I think these are fantastic structures for growers, but you get a hot summer and you cook in them. You can't work in them.
No.
The crop literally cooks in them. So you've got to have this, but you've got to have something that diffuses the light. You know, why wouldn't you stop on those really hot days, that really direct sunlight coming in? You want to scatter the light. It's pretty much the same light levels, but diffused and taking away that sun.
Yeah.
Add that to some really good ventilation.
Yeah. Full length of the tunnel.
Full length of the tunnel on both sides. Then most of the time you will get a very good growing climate. Sometimes a reasonably good, but not very often something that gets too hot and humid.
And of course we'll hold you to that because you're going to come back and visit us again, aren't you?
Of course we are, yes.
And I know you do follow us on the YouTube channel, so you'll see exactly what we're planting and how it goes through the rest of this year and into next year.
Yep.
And hopefully you'll come back again next spring and see us. And
Only if there's a bottle of champagne on the table.
Oh, Mrs. W is the champagne department.
Okay, I will speak to them. We've mentioned a few times about diffusing the light. What is diffusing the light? If you look out here now, you can see the sunshine, you can see the shadow. You can see Barry's shadow there in the sunlight. In here, there's no shadow. So I stand in here. Where's my shadow? There is no shadow. That is what diffusion is. Diffusion basically means the sunlight hits the material and it scatters. So it doesn't mean there's less light in there, it just means the light is coming in at different angles. From a growing point of view, that means if you've got a big crop of beans in here, it would normally create a lot of shadow. You've got lights coming in at all angles, so you get better growth. But it also means you just don't get that direct sunlight coming in and scorching your crops.
So I would really like to thank Tim and Mandy. You've come here today to build our tunnel, which is amazing. This is a service you offer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah. We probably end up building 70 or 80% of the tunnels we sell.
Yeah. But if people do want to build their own, they do come with their full instructions, don't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, come with full instructions.
Yeah, and I know I've watched various things on YouTube where you've been explaining how to do bits and pieces on these tunnels. So, yeah. So in summary, I guess what I'd say is that we now have a tunnel here in our garden. that has all the hallmarks and all the strength of a commercially built polytunnel. Would I be right in saying that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so, yep, like I said, we're really pleased with this. And as I said right back at the beginning of this video, you know, this is not sponsored. This has not been given to us. This is something that myself and Mr. W wanted. And we've been saving up for that, and the day has come when we've been able to put this tunnel here. We are just telling you all these great features and benefits of this wonderful tunnel because we believe it to be really good. We're not being paid for it. No money, no envelopes have changed hands. We just want to say to you, our viewers, you know, if you are at all interested in getting a polytunnel, then do make sure you look at the Haygrove tunnel. And down in the description I will put Mandy and Tim's email, so do drop them a message if you're all interested in one of these polytunnels, and they're really good, honestly. The day I contacted Tim, I think I was on holiday with Mrs. W. We were in Derbyshire, and he had to contact me back on the same day. And we were able to talk about it. So, you know, you'll be in capable hands. They'll be able to explain things, and I'll have questions for you so that they know that, you know, whatever you want is going to be right for you. So do drop them an email, as I say, if you're at all interested. Now, do have a great gardening week, won't you all? And we shall see you on the next one.